How's it going, guys? Welcome back to TheBlueShifting, and welcome back to the House of Fata Morgana Reincarnation, or Revenant stream. And we are back, and we've kind of got to the point now where I think we're getting close to the end, because like we're in the story of Morgana and Jacopo getting back together, like post-resurrection. And while I still don't really think that they make a great like couple, it is apparent that she needs help, and he is helping her, and that's good. It's been really fun watching them kind of like banter, and specifically it's really fun seeing Morgana being like herself, you know? Because in her story, she never had a chance to be just a person. And while she still faces a lot of challenges in this reincarnation, it's just fun to see her being her, you know? So that's my favorite part so far. Yeah, so we also know that she does have like the odd markings and skin patterns that she kind of inherited from her past. Maybe, I'm guessing that they are kind of a self-inflicted punishment from like a remnant of what she was, but it doesn't cover her face. And so like with the proper like clothing, she still can kind of be a person and feel comfortable being out in public, even if she's not super comfortable being out with other people. Like, I don't know. It's really interesting, and it's really fun to watch them, like, kind of chat and do that stuff. So, let's continue and see where the story goes from here. Are they going to be able to reconcile their regrets? And once they do, where do we go from there? So, we'll have to see. But anyway, let's get started. A little bit later, Marie returned with 2 sandwiches. The one she set in front of Morgana was at least 2 times too large for a light afternoon meal. Morgana stared at the triumphant stack of meats and cheeses and vegetables, unsure what to do with it. Meanwhile, all I received was a simple panino containing nothing but a few slices of ham and cheese. I considered filing a complaint, but Morgana ended up giving me what she couldn't eat of hers, at which point I stopped caring enough to feel slighted. The cafe remained empty all throughout lunch. On some level, it was kind of a shame, because the food wasn't bad, but it also meant we could talk with Marie, since she didn't have anyone to wait on. As a dining establishment, it was indisputably a failure, but it couldn't have been more perfect location for us. Oh wow, they like all spent the whole afternoon? Time seemed to pass faster than it should, and the 3 of us talked. Morgana didn't speak much, but she never once seemed bored, sometimes even giving a little laugh at something Marie said. Then at the next thing I realized, the sunlight shining through the window had turned orange. Never before had I spent so much time in a cafe. Usually, I only stayed long enough to inhale some caffeine or calories. The very idea of relaxing seemed like a negligible misuse of time to me. Negligent, not negligible. But this was probably how you were supposed to patronize these sorts of establishments. Well, I don't think you're supposed to do it all day, but yeah, he's got a point there. So, relaxed and refreshed, we decided it was time to head home. As we got up to leave, Maria gave me a disappointed pout and said,
もっとゆっくりしていけばいいのにさ。また近々寄ってよね。私、絶対暇してると思うし。
She's like, I'm so bored, please! She gave us a little wave, and then we headed out. I hoped business would pick up for a bit, but if only because it seemed like Maria was going to die from boredom before long. With that, our sightseeing tour came to an end, and we went to take care of our original goal, shopping. Dang, what a nice, relaxing day, though. I took Morgana to a moderately large supermarket near my apartment, and she was astounded by the wide array of products sold. Apparently, she'd never been to one before, which we only added to my concern about what kind of life she'd led. Though maybe she just lived somewhere really rural that didn't have big stores, and there wasn't anything more to it. I asked Morgana what she wanted for dinner, but all she gave me was a non-committal anything. Then I asked if she had any favorite foods, to which she responded with, I'll eat anything. It was easier to cook for someone if they gave you something to work with. I agree! Evidently, though, she wasn't just being shy and genuinely had no wants or preferences. Add to that how thin she was and how little she seemed to eat, and I began wondering if she'd ever had a proper home-cooked meal. She obviously wasn't the dieting type either. In fact, when Marie had brought her that oversized sandwich, she tried to force herself to finish it. She gave off a little the impression of a nun who had lived her entire life cut off from earthly pleasures. Or perhaps a saint forbidden from indulging in worldly desires. I hoped that one day I might be able to hear her express some kind of desire, be it something she wanted, some food she craved, or some activity she was interested in. hope so too, man. She definitely needs that. When we were done at the markets, we went to the bookstore to buy some movies. However, most of what they had on the shelves was of the top 10 bestseller variety. I wasn't interested in mass market fluff myself, and would have preferred something literary or artistic, or even educational like a documentary. But I knew I wasn't going to find that at a common neighborhood bookstore. Being mass market didn't automatically make a film bad, mind you. It required a great talent to write and direct something capable of resonating with so many people. Lots of careful consideration had to go into every single element of the production to ensure it was enjoyable and understandable to everyone who saw it. It wasn't something just anyone could pick up and do. Now, that wasn't to say I didn't think Morgana could understand more challenging films. In fact, she seemed like the kind of person who wouldn't enjoy pop culture. But I also felt like what she needed right now was some time to just turn off and enjoy some mindless entertainment. So, action-adventure. And comedy. Comedy. We watched one movie before dinner, a classic animated film. Another after, a live-action comedy, neither of which were things I would have watched on my own. But even at the funny parts, Morgana didn't so much as smirk. After a while, I began to feel like an idiot laughing all by myself. So when it was over, I asked her if she didn't like the movie, and...
いいえ、楽しみました。あの役者たちは自分を犠牲にしてまで周囲を笑わせようとしていますね。
Interesting.
非常に尊い行いだと思いました。
Her response was utterly baffling. Who watched a movie for that?
それから、あなたが役者の演技についてああだこうだと言ったり、あのモチーフがどうだとか、いろいろな話をしてくるのが少しうるさかったです。
Okay, fine. Well, I'm sorry. Jeez, I won't talk during a movie again, you can be sure of that.
多少はうるさかったですけれど、自分の知らないことを知るのは楽しい。私、何も知らないんです。世の中の楽しいこととか、どんな人がどんなものを作ってきたのかとか。だから、教えてください。あなたならそれができるんでしょ?
I mean, yeah. Morgana was staying in my apartment tonight as well. Once again, using one of my shirts as oversized loungewear. When I mentioned regretting not buying her clothes of her own, she said,
別に、この服で構いません。支障はないですし。
Fair, but still, let's get you some clothes.
新しく買うのはお金がもったいないですから。
A couple sets of loungewear weren't going to break the bank, but I quickly found myself relenting. That I was even bothered was proof of how much of a disgrace I was.
それにあなたは許可なく私に触れたりしないんでしょ? だったら無防備でも問題ないじゃないですか。
Why does that not feel comforting though? Jeez, this girl was devilish.
私がもし普通の娘だったら、お父さんがいるはずなんです。夢だと思っていたけれど、お母様。いえ、お母さんが夜中に独り言をこぼしていたことがあって、それが真実なら、私の父は流浪の民なんです。どこの誰とも知らない男。どうかしら、わかりません。会っても何を言えばいいのか。会ったところで、私のことなどわからないでしょうし、母はその人に捨てられたのでしょうから、そう考えると、いい印象もありません。もしも父が母を見捨てなければ、母も私を神の子と言わずに済んだかもしれないし。
Unfortunately, though, she likely would have come up with some other scam, because that's kind of who she was.
普通の家族になっていたのかも。そして、こんな運命をたどらなかったのかも。なんで、そんな乱暴なことを考えるんですか？見つけ出して、殴り飛ばすとか。暴力はやめてください。それがもしも、私のためなのだとしても、暴力は、もうやめて。私、 一応分かっているつもりです。力がなければ踏みにじられてしまう。あなたが子供の頃も、私が幼かった頃も、力がなかったから抵抗できなかった。でも、それでも、やめてください。私、もう、あなたの力が弱いとは思っていません。いいえ、むしろ、あなたの手は何人もの命を奪えるくらいに強いのだと、最初から分かっていたんです。でも、だからこそ、その手で、もう誰かを傷つけないで、その手で、誰かを殺めるのも、もうやめて。
It really sucks because, like, she was driven to such hatred for such good reason, really. Like, can anyone really blame Morgana? Like, it is exceptionally cruel what she did. It's exceptionally difficult and terrible what she did. But the part of that makes it so good of a story is the fact that, like, can you really sit there and be like, yeah, she's the bad guy? That, yeah, she made a choice that was awful. Can I really say I would have not wanted the same thing she did? That I could somehow see a path forward after so much darkness and death and betrayal? And if I had an opportunity at the end of that road to seek revenge and to actually get it, that I wouldn't? I don't know. I really don't think. I think I would have done the same. And yet, look at all the more pain that she's now underneath and suffering through because she has finally been reconciled and she has finally decided that, like, enough's enough. That now she still can't escape. Like, now that she became an evil almost as great as that which was committed to her. She paid it back tenfold. And stopped caring about the casualties that fell along the way.
絶対ですよ。約束を破ったら、あなたのこと嫌いになりますから。つまり今は好きなのかって。あなたバカなんですか？こんな時に本当にくだらない質問。答えるのを待っているんですか？もしかして。答えるわけないでしょ。何なのよ。じゃあ言ってあげます。別に好きじゃないわ。
Yeah. That dream again. Fields of wheat, stretching out like an ocean. Talk about my unseen father. Hadn't almost the same thing come up this afternoon? Could it be a coincidence? In the dream, there was someone standing before me, a silhouette of a man, his face imperceptible. But whoever it was, they meant a lot to me. If only I could see them again. Morgana spent the following day at my apartment as well. It was a sunny Sunday. We started with a walk. Took a brief tea tour at the cafe Marie worked at. Did some light shopping. I went home and watched a movie. Concerned she might be bored doing all the same things again after the movie we played video games. I wasn't much of a gamer myself, though. I mostly used the console to watch movies. Same, bro. So I bought the digital version of some racing game and we had at it. We were both absolutely terrible, which helped keep things fun and not overly competitive. In our final race, Morgana's car spun out and she ended up driving backward through the course, causing me to laugh so hard I dropped my controller. After that, she refused to play with me anymore, or even talk to me for a good while. Oh, That's actually pretty funny. That's so cute. Monday morning, I had to go to work. It was the first time in my life I had ever felt like an obligation, a burden. Morgana and I spent a good 90% of our time arguing about something or other. But on some level, it seemed like I'd actually come to enjoy those conversations. And having to leave that behind for work only made me realize I wasn't working because I enjoyed it, but because I'd convinced myself it was all I could do. It was a way to ensure that no one would be able to claim I hadn't accomplished anything when I returned to Sicily. So no one could look down on me. So no one could challenge me. I'd always believed that money and power were all one needed to get whatever they wanted in life. And I'd forfeited any semblance of a personal life to achieve that. Even now, I wasn't entirely convinced that belief was wrong either. What things did modern society place the most value in after all? Personal assets and social standing. The more time I spent with Morgana, though, the more these pillars of my life wavered. She didn't care for fancy restaurants and was more than happy to eat some cheap meal that only took 10 minutes to throw together. She found beauty in the ordinary, not just things designed to appear beautiful. Filtered through her eyes, the world seemed gentler than the one I knew. Which was especially curious, as she herself was anything but gentle, mercilessly sharp-tongued and aggressively aloof. Yet because of her, the wind on my cheek felt warmer now. It put my heart at ease in a way that I couldn't help but think. I'd felt this way before, long, long ago. That it wasn't arbitrary. That there was an explanation for the peace she provided me. I do like how they have the echoes in their soul still. I stopped doing regular overtime at work. Where before I had written everyone off as unreliable and useless, deciding it would be best to simply hand everything to myself, I started delegating some of that work back to my subordinates. Everyone was shocked at the sudden change in my demeanor, and many were upset at the reduced efficiency that resulted from it. But it was their work to begin with, so they had no grounds to complain. People were going to be talking about me behind my back. That much was inevitable when their workload increased. Even more so considering I was already disliked for how often I yelled and chewed people out. But I didn't have time to bother myself with other people's opinions. Before, I might have been worried if it would affect my prospects for a promotion. But now I wasn't especially concerned. I was doing what I needed to do and not a single thing more. That's the attitude. My priority now was getting home as quickly as possible, so I could teach Morgana about the world. Now that's having a family, man. Good. I don't know what it's going to become, essentially, but I do think so far it's feeling more like a brother-sister relationship, which I really hope that's what it kind of stays at, honestly, frankly. Please just keep it there. I doubt it will, because that's not what it was before, at least for him, but it'd be nice if it just keep it sibling. Maybe I'm being selfish, but just feels weird if it isn't. And then, before I realized it, 2 weeks had passed since I'd taken her in on that rainy night. Still, she was staying at my apartment. Sometimes I'd ask her with a sigh, "When are you planning to go home already?" To which she'd respond, puffing her cheeks, "You're free to kick me out whenever you please." Except I couldn't, which was why we were in the situation in the first place. Did she challenge me knowing I wouldn't call her bluff? That I didn't actually want to throw her out anymore? Over the past couple weeks, I'd bought more books and movies than I could count and so she could keep herself occupied while I was at work. And shocking even myself, I'd given her a spare key as well. Something was clearly loose in my head. Doing things for her made me feel good, though. And as insane as I rationally knew I was, I couldn't fight how it made me feel. Over and over and over again, I argued with myself, but never once did good sense win out. I must confess I'd grown quite fond of this new life. So what's gonna throw the wrench in it? It was a Thursday, a little over 2 weeks since I'd met Morgana. The first day, all I'd managed to do was force an umbrella onto her. Never could I imagine from that encounter that we'd effectively be living together soon after. Not enough time had passed to really reminisce about how far we'd come, but nevertheless, that change was undeniable.
くそ、もう8時半だ。やはり連日定時で上がるのは厳しいな。8時半で遅くなったか。ずいぶんな変化だな。あいつは先に飯を食っているだろうか。まさか待っていたりはしないだろうな。 おい、帰ったぞ。モルガナ。おい。モルガナ。いないのか？
Is she asleep? Uh-oh. What? I couldn't find her anywhere in the apartment. She wasn't asleep, she wasn't in the shower either. She was just gone, as if the last 2 weeks had all been a dream. We weren't family, nor were we really living together, but I'd gotten so used to having someone there to snark at me when I got home that it felt off to be greeted by silence. My first thought was that something had happened to her. She was hurt or in danger, but the apartment was just how I'd left it. The door was still locked. There was no sign of anyone breaking in. She had left her on her own volition, locking the door behind her. Could she have gotten into trouble somewhere else then?
くそ。こういう時に連絡する手段がない。やはり携帯の一つや二つ持たせておくべきだったのだ。
Not only should I have got her a phone, I should have got her a second phone in case the first phone lost its charge.
外に探しに行くか、それとも警察に。
Oh, but you can't do that. Slow down. Why was I acting like she needed to be here when I got back? After how many times I told her to get out. I'd never meant it as anything more than banter, but how was she supposed to know my intentions? Wouldn't it have made more sense for her to have just gone home, as opposed to something actually happening to her? That I was the only one enjoying our time together, and she'd finally gotten tired of me for good? I mean, thinking back, she'd clearly always seemed annoyed. Constantly complaining, never smiling, telling me who even knows how many times I should burn in hell. What if I'd misread her and she wasn't joking, and every day was her piling on more and more stress? As much as I hate to continue to insist she was a child, it wasn't like she was primary school or middle school aged. She was old enough to think and make decisions for herself. In fact, judging from the short time we'd been together, she was very mature for her age. So she wasn't going to be completely helpless if something did happen to her.
つまりはそういうことか。もう見切りをつけたのだ。
I doubt it, but I don't think you should panic.
そうか。せめて一言くらい残していけばいいのに。そういう間柄でもなかったということだ。
I wasn't so much angry as I felt bummed. I tossed the movie I'd brought over the lunch table to the counter. Then I collapsed into the couch. She'd always sat right here in this spot. Okay, you're getting creepy, Jacopo. She was small, barely took up any space, but the hole left in her absence felt larger than life. The room was uncomfortably quiet now. It felt like the temperature had dropped several degrees as well.
もともとこれが正しい状況だったではないか。何を気落ちしているのだ、バカめ。飯でも作るか。
I stood motionless in the kitchen, unable to scrounge together the motivation to make anything. I wasn't cooking for anyone else, so didn't have anything to fancy. Just warmed up a can of spaghetti sauce and tossed it over some pasta. Easy. Why am I depressed?
扉の開いた音がしたか。
あら、もう帰っていたんですね。一人分だけ先に作るつもりですか？
He's like, oh, thank goodness. She stood before me with a grocery bag in her hands. I stood before her, utterly stupefied. She frowned that also familiar frown. She didn't have to say a word. I could still hear her mocking me clear as day. It felt like all the wind had been sucked out of me, and with it, the ability to lie.
あ、いや、帰ったのだとばかり思っていた。
帰ったじゃないですか。今。
Oh, I'd be like, oh, we weren't on the same page. She seemed to think that by home I meant. I finally hit her that without even missing a beat, she'd called my apartment her home. Yeah, fetch, man.
何笑っているの？いきなりそんな楽しそうに。言い間違えただけですからね。
Oh my gosh, his inner soul must be doing the Congo dance right now. It must be so happy.
わかっている。わかっているさ。
もう、まだ笑っているし、変な人なんだから。
ああ、そうだな。すっかりおかしなやつになっちまったみたいだよ。
Yeah, we're
僕は
both an enigma.
僕
Gosh darn it! Now it was my turn for a slip of the tongue. I hadn't talked like that in years.
あ、いや、今のは違うんだ。気にするな。というか、気にしないでくれ。
その方がいいんじゃないというより、その方が絶対いいですよ。なんで繕っているのか知りませんけれど。私の前では、そういう話し方にして。
ま、気が向いたらな。
She smiled. A rare occurrence. But I couldn't bring myself to look her in the eyes. I absolutely wanted to take in every second of it, though. God, I was acting like some damn child. But it was getting to be impossible to deny what was going on. I was a 26-year-old man and she was a good decade younger. I was wrong on so many levels. I had these feelings about her. Dang it! I was hoping this wouldn't happen. But I was entranced with Morgana.
ベッドで寝てもいいですよ。
I was getting ready to head to the living room for bed when Morgana interrupted me. Did this girl understand the meaning of her words? She was telling me I could sleep in the same bed as her?
ずっとソファーで寝ていたら疲れるでしょう。それに、私にそういう気は起きないんですよね。
On the contrary!
そういう気が起きる起きないの話じゃない。同じベッドで寝るのは良くないだろ
う。理屈になってないと思います。
理屈になってなくてもまずいものはまずいのだ。
私としては、あなたが疲れた顔で出勤する方がまずいと思います。やっぱり、寝起きが少し辛そうでしたから。
なんだ君、意外と私のことを見ているな。だったら君がソファーで寝ればいいだろう。
嫌です。私、ベッド派なんで。
Okay.
なんだそれは。
まあ、ソファーで寝たいと堅くなにおっしゃるのなら、それでいいと思います。じゃあ、おやすみなさい。
Oh no! Oh gosh! Ah! There's so much wrong with this! Somehow, Morgana managed to wear me down, and now we're both in bed. The same bed. I was pretty sure I'd rest better on the couch than here, both physically and mentally. To start with, being able to sense her presence behind me was incredibly distracting. Then there was the worry I might accidentally roll over and crush her. The worst of all was her body heat. I wasn't accustomed to being able to feel anyone so close.
ねえ、絶対にこっちを振り向かないでくださいね。向き合って眠るのなんて、真っ平だから。
ベッドを使っていいと言ったのは君だろうに。まったく。わかった。そっちは向かない。
She was still as a corpse behind me, but I could feel a tension in the air nonetheless. What was she getting worked up about? Jeez. The longer the silence continued, the more uncomfortable it grew. I sighed, letting it hang in the air long before breaking it with a "Hey." She lurched slightly at the sound of my voice. Then, after another brief pause, she responded with a "What?"
眠れないようなら少し話でもしないかと思ってな。
別に構いませんけれど。何の話をするつもりなんですか？
I don't know, maybe the fact that you could cut the air in here with a knife?
そうだな。いい加減聞かせてくれないか。
そんなに気になるの？
当たり前だろ。
私にああだこうだと助言をしたいから。
そういや、2週間前に出かけた時、カフェでそんなことを言ったな。あの時は本音は言えなかった。今なら、この距離なら、もう少し素直になれる気がする。君にも、もう少し優しくできるような気がする。 君のことが気になるからだ。ただ知りたいだけで、こっちの意見を押し付けたいわけじゃない。
Okay.
知りたいと思うのはおかしなことか。
In this thing, it feels like it, yes. I mean, it depends on the context.
でも、よくある話よ。面白くもない。
面白さなんてかけらも求めていない。
ねえ、あなたは神を信じていますか？
神？どうして突然神の話が出てくるんだ？それに聞きたいのは君の話であって。
いいから答えて。
正直なところ、信じておらんな。だが、別に私が特別に不敬であるという話ではないだろう。
So that's not really an answer, but I understand. It's complicated.
今の時代で心から神を信じているのはごく一部だ。先進国の人間はほとんど信じちゃいない。宗教は冠婚葬祭の時に必要になるだけだ。
That certainly isn't the case here in the United States, at least.
そうね。ほとんどの人がそうだわ。でも、私は信じています。大いなる父の存在を、私を見守る神の存在を、そして神がもたらす奇跡の力と、小さな人間では抗いようのない運命の流れを。神を愛する心は、かつてはそれこそが正しく、逆に信仰心のない者は神を心から信じていると古臭い人間だと思われるわ。下手をすれば偏った思考を持つおかしな人間だと思われることもある。
I hope this is something that isn't prevalent, because beliefs are beliefs. How would I put this? Even if I wouldn't agree with a belief system that you had, I think pure, honest belief in anything there's a beauty to it. The danger is that you can use beliefs as a excuse to justify very ugly things. I don't approve of that. But I think genuinely wanting to believe that there's a greater purpose to the universe, that there are forces of good that are guiding us and helping mark a path that's bringing us towards a brighter future. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I don't think there's anything demeaning or unintelligent or irrational about wanting that in your life and wanting that to be the case for the world. The world's a scary place. Terrible things happen. It's nice to be able to believe that there's a purpose and that all things will work out for a greater good, that there's a balance and a give and take, and that there's systems and securities and settings in place to make sure that things are going to be okay, and that, you know, the world isn't going to crumble away before its time. There's a lot of peace in that, and I don't fault anybody who claims to hold to those beliefs. In fact, like I said, I think it's beautiful. It can be a very beautiful thing, and it can be motivating. It can be unifying. It can give hope when there should be none. It can be a source of enlightenment and understanding and philosophy. Like, there's so many great philosophies that come from religious minds. Again, like anything, any good thing can be twisted into something evil, but that doesn't mean that the entirety of what it was is evil in the first place. So, yeah. I hope that people are tolerant of those who have beliefs and belief systems. The world's big enough for all of us to have faith. There's no need to make that a battleground. Not when it's not interfering with our lives and each other's lives. She was right. These days people weren't pushing for being faithless, or weren't punished for being faithless or believing in other gods, as would have happened in ancient times. And for that, the world was a more peaceful and accepting place now. But these societal rules for acceptance had not gone away, merely transformed over the centuries. While you wouldn't be burned at the stake anymore, those with beliefs deemed unacceptable were still made to be outcasts. Something I was guilty of doing as well. I frequently found myself frustrated at people who didn't see the world as the same as me, as I was closed-minded and unable to adapt to different ideas. Instead, I threw them to the curb, making no attempt to reconcile or understand, refusing to examine my own beliefs. That's the kicker there. Whether you have faith or not, we all need to be better at doing, making an attempt to reconcile, understand, and examine our own position. Be willing. I think one of the greatest things I think we could ever have for any people is, and probably if there was a philosophy I'd want to uphold, there'd be 2 points to it. The first is that perspective is everything, and that the perspective of others is often far more telling than any other piece of knowledge about someone's background you could ever understand. Seeing things from their viewpoint will tell you far more about a person's choices than anything else. And second is that all of us should be quicker to question our own beliefs than to question the beliefs of others. Only when we can be truly reflective and retrospectively infer on our own failings, shortcomings, and potential mistakes do we have any position to judge others. Judging others is an important facet of life. It's not something we can just avoid or never acknowledge. But if we don't have the equal introspection to coincide with it, then what are we doing but just bringing more harm? Like, there's the great saying that's actually from the Bible that I actually love. It's one of my favorite things that I ever learned growing up, like learning the Bible, was that how can you say, brother, thou hast a mote in thine eye, when thou hast a beam in thine own? The idea being, like, how can you point out a flaw in somebody else's way of seeing? Because a mote in the eye, like a sliver, essentially. Like, how can you point out a flaw in a way of somebody else's perspective when one has a massive blinding spot in their own? Cast the beam out first, then help remove the mote. That's essentially what that saying is about, and I think that's very true, regardless of the source. Fantastic advice. When we first met, I probably would have laughed in her face if she told me she believed in God. The Heavenly Father, His divine plan, fantasy nonsense, all of it. I wouldn't have even given her the time of day.
ただ、私よりも母の方が神を信じている。いいえ、拠り所にしているんです。顔も知らない実の父の話はしたでしょ。両親が離婚してから母は随分と荒れていたようなんです。あの人が通い詰めたのは地元の教会で、母にとって教会はとても身近な存在で、孤独を癒す場であり、救いの場でした。
And see, how can you fault that? Like, that's a good thing, right?
そして私にとっても身近な存在で、倫理を習う場であり、懺悔の場でした。
Based on her dress and what she's describing, it does sound very much like a Catholic religion or religious sect. And my experience with Catholic has been very similar. It is often a place that feels very much like a home. I've had many friends who've been Catholic, and whenever I've been invited to activities, I tend to it's odd because, like, one of my hobbies is attending religious services, especially ones I've never been to before, because I find it very interesting. Not necessarily like, oh, I'll plan to join. It's more of like, I want to see what others find joy and meaning in. And I feel like the times I've been involved and been invited to participate in Catholic services have always been very pleasant ones.
懺悔？その頃はまだ子供だったんだろ？一体何に対しての懺悔だ？そんなもの必要ないだろう。
いいえ、私には魂にこびりついた業があるのです。
He doesn't like that. Excuse me, what?
私の魂は神の裁きを受けないままこの世に降り立ってしまったがために前世の汚れを持ったままなんです。
Now that's not a very Catholic point of view. Interesting. I wonder what sect she's supposed to be a part of. Because that's like Christian is very much not a reincarnation type of belief system. But it's interesting, this idea that like your soul gets purified as you enter the next life and prepare to be born into a new body. But she skipped that stage.
だから私は前世の過ちをこの世界で償い続けなければならない。
You see, I don't know if I agree with that either.
そう言われました。
なんだそれは。それをまさか神父が言ったとでも言うのか。
Oh, he's so pissed.
いいかモルガーナ、君が何を信じようが自由だ。今時珍しいくらいの敬虔な信者であろうとも文句は言わん。だがそればかりは否定させてもらうぞ。前世の過ちを現世で償うなど馬鹿げている。前世そのものがオカルトだというのに、そんなものに生き方を縛られるつもりか。
確かに私も最初はそう思っていたんです。自分の知らないあるかもわからない前世の過ちを。でも母も神父もこう言うのです。私の体に残る醜いただれこそが魂に刻まれた業の証拠であると。病院に行ってもただれの正体はわからないままでした。
So they still
どの
can't
医者
be
も
treated.
原因がわからないというのです。だからこれは病気ではなく意図的に神が残したものであると思ったんです。
そんなバカな話があってたまるか。君は母親と神父に騙されているだけだ。
そうね。きっとそう思えたでしょうね。私の心に自分の知らない記憶さえなければ。
Yeah, unfortunately, it's like it's bad enough to have those memories, but then to have your like fears like kind of confirmed by like a parent and a religious leader, both of whom you respect deeply.
なんだって。自分の知らない。
That golden field of wheat immediately popped into my mind. I had memories that didn't belong to me too. In them, a hazy silhouette of a girl.
その記憶の中で私は気の遠くなるような長い時間、本当は巻き込んではいけない善良な人すら陥れて憎しみの言葉を吐き続けている。
Fetch.
私がいるのは色彩を失った死の気配が漂う館で、そこに3人の魂を閉じ込めるんです。
Holy crap, she has some very specific knowledge.
いいえ、3人だけじゃない。そのゆかりの者たちの魂も間接的に縛り付けて、
That's
彼ら
true.
の永劫の呪いを誓う。
I think one of the most erroneous things that she did was dragging in people who had nothing to do with the pain that she was in, but simply through association. Maria, Nellie, Pauline, like, they weren't at fault. They didn't make those terrible choices. And yet they got punished all the same.
妄言だと思っているでしょう。別に構いませんよ。自覚はありますから。魂も呪いも死の館もどれも笑い話に聞こえるくらいおかしなことですからね。
It was childish and silly, and it was kind of fantasy nonsense that had no place outside of fiction. But I couldn't carry those words from my mind to my mouth. A chill ran down my spine, like a bony finger sliding down the skin, until it stopped at my heart. It was as if it was trying to say Morgana was talking about me. My mind was just playing tricks. There wasn't any evidence, but the thought wouldn't leave me.
どうしたんですか？もしかして眠った？
まさか話の途中で寝るわけがないだろう。ただ君の何でもないんだ。話を続けてくれ。
人は妄想だと思おうとも、私には途方もない時間、人を呪い、彼らの魂を壊してきた記憶があるんです。はっきりと覚えているものではないけれど、確かにそういうことがあったのだという奇妙な感覚。だから、これが私の業だと言われたら、納得してしまったんです。記憶の中では、私は3人の者たちに業を植え付けた。でも、私自身の業については、おざなりにしたままだった。それを清算するのが、きっと、根性の役目なのでしょう。私は自分の罪に向き合う必要があるんだわ。
もし、それが本当なのだとしても、やはり、君が償うものなど何一つない。君は理由があって人を呪ったのだ。呪われるべき行いを、そいつらが行ったのだ。償うべきは、相手の方だろう。
Morgana wasn't the kind of girl to hate someone for an insignificant slight. While she could be vicious and caustic sometimes, she wasn't actually cruel. She was a sweet, selfless girl with a big heart. And the proof was right here in her insisting she needed to atone for sins she had no direct hand in. Because that was who she was. She would carry the whole world on her back if she could. So when she said that she cursed 3 men for eternity, there was necessarily more there than the minor grudge. Something bad enough had happened to push her to take such drastic measures. Someone had mistreated her so badly as to deserve an eternity of torment. Someone had...
それに、私の思いは変わらない。前世の償いをするなんて馬鹿げている。そんなものに君が縛られる必要はないんだ。
Was that true, though? Obviously, she didn't need anyone to atone for anything. But what about those who had hurt her? If they were alive now too, would I be able to say the same about them? Was it right to just let them move on? God, where was this train of thought even going? I had no idea anymore. For whatever reason, I was proceeding under the assumption that reincarnation and past lives were real, which had no scientific foundation. What, was Morgana rubbing off on me? I needed to cool my head. There was no such thing as reincarnation. These memories I had were places I've never been, things I'd never done, were all fantasy.
だが、わからんな。その話が今の君にどうつながるんだ。公園にいたことに何か関係があるのか。
ええ。私には業があるから、どんなことでも受け入れるべきだと、そう思っていたんです。けれど、どうしても受け入れられないことが起きたから、家を出たんです。それが一番平和なやり方だと思ったから。
What was that?
一体何があったんだ。
I didn't have to see her face to know she was faltering, unsure if she wanted to continue. I should have told her she didn't have to force herself, but I couldn't bring myself to stop her. I wanted to get to the root of the problem. I needed to know what she was going through. Not out of some excessive degree of care for her, though, but largely for my own personal satisfaction. After a long silence, she muttered in a voice so soft, a pin dropping would have drowned it out.
私、いらない子なんです。
いらない？母親が君にそう言ったというのか。
お母さん、いえ、母は最近再婚したんです。教会で知り合った人と。教会にいるような人なんですから、いい人に違いないのよ。
Those two aren't necessarily correlated, but I get what you're saying. She was mumbling absentmindedly and didn't seem to be hearing me at all. This wasn't like her. She was always very direct when she spoke. It was making me uneasy. A shadowy figure seemed to tower over me, so I blurted something out without thinking and tried to chase it off.
教会にいたからいいやつ。そんな法則はない。どんなところでも悪人はいる。たとえそこが天国であったとしてもだ。
That's an interesting way to say it. Not even heaven's an exception.
教えてくれ、モルガーナ。何があったんだ。
The longer she stayed silent, the more overpowering my anxiety grew. Why wouldn't she answer me? Why wouldn't she tell me? A black fog swirled around me, slowly filling the room. A black poison coursed through my veins, infecting my entire body.
答えられないようなことをそいつにされたのか。
Boundless rage swelled up within me, too great for me to restrain.
もしそうならそいつを
I'll
effing kill him.
安心してください。あなたが考えているようなことは何もないわ。殴られたことも、おかしなことも。
He's like, I'll go hunt him down! And just like that, she pacified the hatred rising within me, leaving me aghast at my own reaction. Had I just seriously entertained the thought of killing a man? And for what? Because I jumped to the worst possible conclusion, a completely baseless one at that? I wasn't being reasonable. I was acting like a feral dog. I was seconds from ripping a man's throat out for setting foot in my territory. It was absurd. It didn't matter how enchanted I was by her I was. That wasn't a reason enough to murder her stepfather. I'd like to hope I had at least that much of my sanity intact.
あの人にはただ正論を言われただけ。正しいのは向こうで、悪いのは私です。
Oh, I don't know. I almost wish he had done something so we could go kill him. It sounds like a terrible thing anyway.
言葉を濁すのはやめてくれ。本当に正論を言われただけなら君は今こんなところにいないはずだ。
そうかもしれないわね。彼は私のことが気持ち悪いと言っていたわ。この声も目も態度も、そして醜いただれも。
Alright, Jacopo, let's go kill him. At least let's make him bleed. What the fetch is wrong with you?
私を構成する何もかもがあの人にとっては吐き気がするほど。あの人が一緒になりたかったのは私の母だけですから、私のことは邪魔だったのでしょう。
Oh, yep.
だから余計
Yep.
目障りなのだと思います。
I want to go serve him a knuckle sandwich.
それか生理的に受け付けないだけなのかもしれないけれど、何度も言われたわ。生まれてくるべきじゃなかったって。今すぐいなくなってくれたら全員が幸せになれるのにって。
Yep, I'm killing him. I'm killing him myself. Like, I'm going now.
それのどこが正論だと言うんだ。言われのないそしりを受けるのも前世の業のせいだとでも言うつもりか。いい大人が家族となった娘に対してそんなことを言うなんて。間違っているのも歪んでいるのもそいつの方だ。
Amen.
君の母親は何も言わないのか。
母はあの人の味方ですから、そのことは構いません。女手一つで私を育ててくれたのですから、
Yeah.
幸せになる権利があります。
She wasn't great in the I don't know if it's the same mom or not, but your mom in the former life was pretty scummy too.
二人を引き裂くような真似はしたくないわ。
母親ではなく君が幸せになる権利もあるだろうが。
己の幸せよりも他者の幸せを願う方がよっぽど尊い行いです。
そんなもの。くそ。私に対して地獄に落ちろと言えるくらいなんだ。そいつらにだって毒を吐けるだろう。なんで一番罵倒すべき相手を守ろうとするんだ。
家族だから。
Being family doesn't give you a free pass to do whatever the heck you want. Someone being family doesn't obligate you to love them. Freaking men. Of course, the church wasn't going to agree with me. You weren't supposed to unconditionally love you were supposed to unconditionally love your family, even if they weren't showing you any love in return. I would have taken the caustic, venom-tongued Morgana over this meek, self-sacrificing side absolutely any day.
君は否定するだろうが、それは虐待と同じだ。たとえ暴力がなくとも、言葉だって同じように傷を作る。
Yes, words can.
君は今、いくつなんだ？20歳だとか答えずに、今の本当の年齢を教えてくれ。
16。
As I'd suspected, she was a full decade younger than me, but having actual confirmation made it that much more real. It sickened me that a 16-year-old girl had to live like that. She was at an age where she still needed her parents, and yet neither of them were there for her.
高校はどうしている？
家を出る前はちゃんと言っていたわ。一度も遅刻したことはなかったし、
Dang.
休んだこともなかった。
わかった。なら学校はこれからも生き続けてちゃんと卒業しろ。高校さえ出れば自由は利くようになる。
This will make an easier thumbnail.
そしたらすぐに家を出るんだ。そのふざけた養父もそれを望んでいるんだろう。だがな、私がこんなことを言ったのは決して家族のためじゃない。君のためだ。
That's one of the...
そんな養父のために人生を無駄にすることはない。
Sorry, Jacopo. I'm with you in this one. One of the crappiest things about especially mental and emotional abuse is that because it doesn't leave physical marks, there's not a lot of actionable measures that can be taken against it. And unfortunately, parents do have a pretty unilateral control and like dictation over your life until you're 18. So they can really screw your life up if they want to. What's amazing to me are the parents who do things like commit what is it, what would it be? It would be I should know this. I'm still having brain fog. Sorry. It's when you steal someone's identity. Parents will use the social security numbers of their kids to take out credit cards that they normally would get turned down for because their credit's so terrible, and they'll rack up debt in the name of their child and ruin their credit score before they even have an opportunity to use credit, let alone understand what credit is. Like, that actually happens nowadays. Parents can absolutely ruin your life, and there's so little that can be done about it. So if you have a crappy parent, or like a parent or guardian, there's only so much you can do.
でも、自由になったって何をしたらいいかわかりません。あなただって知っているでしょ。私、世間のことをほとんど知らないのよ。やりたいことも、目指すものも、見つからない。
Well, you got me, dang it!
そんなことはこれから見つければいい話だろうが。今までは誰も君に広い世界を見せてこなかったみたいだが、今は私がいるだろう。
I'll accept it, Jacopo, because she needs to.
高校を卒業するまで何度もここへ来ればいい。そのうちにやりたいことも見つかる。私が手伝ってやる。それとも不満か？私では役に立たないか？
そうね。ちょっぴり不満。だってあなた、私がもたついているとすぐイライラするし、うんちくを語ると長いし。
I'm glad she's back.
ちっとも優しく教えてくれないんですから。
Really? You go to a Catholic school and he's the meanest teacher?
それはなるべく気をつけるようにする。
冗談ですよ。怒鳴らないでいてくれたら、いつものあなたで問題ないわ。
そうか。それならよかった。
うん。私、初めて知ったわ。誰かが自分の代わりに怒ってくれると、こんなに気が楽になるんですね。
That's so cool.
これくらいで楽になるならいくらでも怒ってやる。幸いなことに私は怒りっぽいらしいからな。
It's my special talent. I'll get pissed off at anyone you want, Morgana. Gosh darn it! I didn't think I was gonna get emotional. Ah!
やっぱりほどほどにして。あなた、怒りすぎたら暴力を振るいそうだもの。
Yeah, in fact, he probably shouldn't ever meet your stepfather, because he might.
そんなことはしない。 少なくとも君の目につくようなところではな。
It's like, at least not when you're around.
目につかない場所でも暴力はやめてほしいんですけれど。まあ、信じておいてあげます。あなたが優しい人だということも分かったからね。
まさか君にそんなことを言われるとはな。ひょっとしたら明日の朝には世界が終わっているかもしれん。
やっぱりあなたは優しくないですし、ただのおせっかいで面倒な人よ。
余計なことを言うのではなかった。
ありがとう。おやすみなさい。
ああ、
おやすみ。
おやすみ、モルガーナ。いい夢を見られるといいな。
As I'd feared, her situation was far from ideal. Hopefully, she was able to find a glimmer of hope after our conversation. Family troubles weren't something that went away overnight, though, and for all I knew, things were much worse than she'd let on, to the point that maybe even graduating high school was unrealistic. If that were the case, going back to school might not have been the best advice after all. All I could do was pray that things weren't that bad. My advice was too vague and general to actually fix anything, but that was the best I could do for someone who was essentially still a stranger. Her family was a complete black box. I could see only the outcome, none of the process, and it frustrated me to no end. Yeah.
何？あなた、懲りずにバカな夢を見るつもりなの？全力で消すって、今言ったばかりなのに。
You know what? This isn't where I actually want to end it, like, logically. But I'm gonna end it here. Because I want to listen to this music right now. Okay? I'm selfish, dang it. We're gonna start in the dream next time. And figure out what's gonna happen in the morning. Part of me is a little terrified that she's gonna, like, leave in the middle of the night. He's gonna wake up alone. And she's gonna have gone back home. And he has no way to contact her. And he'll be like, what have I done? Like, have I messed up? Like, what if, Like, he's gonna be, like, that's what I'm kind of scared is gonna happen. But I need a little bit of solace right now. Emotionally, I'm exhausted. Oh, gosh. Man, what a freaking trip that was. Wow. I still think it's a little creepy. He's so enamored with her, but he is what she needs right now. Is like, as in somebody who can provide a home for her, you know? So, can't fault him there. I was right there with him. I want to sock that man in the face myself. Ah, it's so funny because, like, I just don't see myself ever being violent to anybody in my life, like real life. And yet when it comes to these stories and characters, like, I feel like I legitimately could punch them in the face if I saw them, like, if they were to somehow materialize in the flesh in front of me. I could feel myself being full on, like, Hulk mode there, and that's kind of weird. But I'm really grateful to be able to share this and to be able to be a part of this story, you know? Even in small part. So thank you so much for spending your time with me. I appreciate you spending any length of time with me and being a part of this journey that together we can see these events play out. Especially thank you so much for the support and care from the patrons. It's wonderful that you guys are willing to support me in this and that you continue to do so. I'm pretty lucky. Pretty lucky in a lot of ways. I said I had a patron cast recently, and it's been wonderful hearing back from those of you who've been able to watch it. If you ever wanted to see some of the behind-the-scenes stuff and kind of get a good glimpse of, like, what's going on, and even potentially some access to some, like, special content in the near future, if I can manage to actually get out of bed long enough to do stuff, something worth looking into is the Patreon. It's a great way to support me directly. And I might even activate channel memberships, which would essentially be the same thing. Like, name in the credits, access to the special playlist and patron cast. Just maybe it's easier or something you'd prefer to Patreon, but regardless, that's all neither here nor there. The fact that you're here is more than enough, so thank you. And until the next video, watch me up, see me next. I'll see you there.